Some people even stood. Karen stormed out of the meeting, humiliated, red-faced, muttering to herself. She didn't say another word to me, not then and not ever again. She ran over my mailbox, twice. I warned her the third time would be different. What she didn't know, I built a mailbox that hits back. You know those moments in life where you feel like you're living in a sitcom, except it's not funny, and you're the main character stuck dealing with absurdity. That's exactly what my life became the day my mailbox was first run over. It was a sunny Monday morning, and I had just poured myself a fresh cup of coffee when I heard the most gut-wrenching sound, a loud metallic crunch followed by plastic shattering like glass. I rushed to my front door and flung it open, only to see my mailbox, or what was left of it, lying in the middle of my lawn. The post was bent at a 45-degree angle, the box itself crushed like an empty soda can. At first, I thought maybe a delivery driver misjudged the curb or some teenager had taken a joyride too far. But then I saw the tire tracks, two perfect arcs that curved unnaturally into my lawn right where the mailbox stood. Odd. Very odd. As I walked closer, something caught my eye at the end of the road. A silver SUV turning the corner with a shiny HOA board member decal displayed on the back window. I didn't see the license plate, but I didn't need to. In my gut, I knew it was Karen. Ah yes, Karen. The self-appointed enforcer of neighborhood perfection. The same woman who once filed a formal complaint because I had a non-standard shade of mulch in my flower bed. The same woman who left anonymous notes on my door about my trash cans being visible from the street, twice. The same woman who treated our HOA like her personal kingdom, complete with rules she made up on the fly. We'd had a rocky relationship from the start. Things really blew up a few months back during an HOA meeting, where I dared to vote against her proposal to raise HOA fees to fund a new gate at the community entrance. That vote didn't go her way. Ever since then, she looked at me like I was public enemy number one. But seriously, my mailbox? At the time, I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I figured, let's give it the benefit of the doubt. I mean, maybe it really was an accident, right? I replaced the mailbox with a simple model from the hardware store and hoped that was the end of it. Little did I know, this was just the opening act in what would become a full-blown war. Not even a week later, I woke up to déjà vu. I walked out to grab my morning newspaper and immediately stopped in my tracks. There it was, my new mailbox, shattered again. This time, the damage was worse. The post had snapped at the base. The metal from the box had been twisted and dragged about 6 feet across the grass. Even the mounting bolts were ripped from the concrete footing. Now I was pissed, and this time I found something interesting. A tiny plastic shard caught in the grass. I picked it up and recognized it immediately. A piece of an SUV headlight. Silver paint flakes were embedded in the plastic. No more guessing. It was her. I knocked on her door that same evening. Karen opened it slowly, wearing her signature pastel sweater and that look of disapproval she always wore, like she was constantly sniffing something unpleasant. I calmly said, "Hey Karen, my mailbox got hit again. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you?" She blinked at me like I'd just asked her to recite the Constitution. Then, without breaking eye contact, she replied, "Maybe if you installed it farther from the curb, it wouldn't keep getting hit." No apology, no denial, just a smirk. That smug Karen smirk. I walked away that night with a fire in my chest. Something about her attitude, so flippant, so smug, made it clear. This wasn't random, this was intentional. The next day, I filed a report with the HOA. I sent pictures of the damage, included a photo of the silver SUV that I'd snapped from my Ring doorbell when she drove by, and attached my polite letter requesting they look into it. 1 week passed, no response. 2 weeks. Still nothing. Finally, I showed up to the next HOA meeting in person. I brought printouts, evidence, the works. When I brought up my complaint during the open floor session, Karen interrupted me before I even finished my sentence. "I'm sorry," she said, in that syrupy tone she used when pretending to be innocent, "but it's not the HOA's responsibility to monitor people's personal mailbox placement. If it keeps getting damaged, Perhaps the design doesn't meet the community's standards for safety or durability. I was stunned. What kind of twisted reality was I living in? She had the entire board, her buddies, wrapped around her finger, and they weren't going to lift a finger to stop her. In fact, the president chimed in and told me that modifications to the front yard should be submitted for review if I planned to change my mailbox design. It was clear I was on my own. The psychological toll started creeping in. I was checking the mailbox 3 times a day. Every engine I heard outside sent a jolt through my chest. I started dreaming about mailboxes being run over in slow motion. That's when I knew this wasn't just vandalism anymore. It was warfare, and I needed a plan, not just to stop Karen, but to make sure she could never touch my property again. I spent the next few nights researching mailbox regulations, HOA rules, and roadside safety measures. I was determined not to just fight back. I was going to win on every front, legally, physically, and mentally. That's when I stumbled onto a forum post titled, "How I Built a Mailbox That Destroyed a Truck." That was it. My golden ticket. Turns out there's an entire community of people, mostly rural homeowners, who've dealt with mailbox vandalism. And one guy in Idaho had built what he called the tank, a mailbox so tough that any vehicle that hit it ended up worse off than the box. I was hooked. I reached out to a local welding shop and shared the design I had in mind. A core of poured concrete, reinforced with steel rebar, encased in a welded steel shell with a faux wood finish to meet neighborhood aesthetic guidelines. Mounted onto a 4-foot deep footing with 6-inch diameter galvanized steel pipe. Decorative touches to make it blend in, but at its heart, this thing was a fortress. I even added a locking mechanism and solar-powered light strip around the mailbox number plate. HOA friendly? Technically, yes, but it could also survive a collision with a small tank. The entire project took about 2 weeks to complete. I had it professionally installed at night, so no one saw the final touches going in. To everyone else, it looked like I had just upgraded to a classier model. But I knew better. This mailbox wasn't just a mail holder, it was a trap. 3 nights passed after I installed my indestructible fortress of a mailbox. 3 long, quiet nights where nothing happened. No tire tracks, no suspicious activity, not even a passive-aggressive glance from Karen. I started to wonder, had she actually given up? Maybe the upgrade scared her off. Maybe, just maybe, I'd won without ever triggering the trap. But of course, that's not how these stories go. It was the 4th night. I remember it vividly because I couldn't sleep. I had this feeling, call it intuition, paranoia, or just nerves, that something was about to happen. So instead of heading to bed, I sat in the dark living room, sipping on a mug of chamomile tea, eyes half glued to the screen of my home security app. I had 2 cameras pointed at the mailbox, one hidden in a nearby bush and another in a decorative light fixture on the porch. Both were armed with motion sensors and night vision. I also had an app that gave me a live feed. 10:47 p.m. The motion sensor lit up. I looked at the screen and saw the silhouette of a silver SUV slowly creeping down the street. Not parked, not idling. Creeping. Headlights off. That car wasn't out for a drive. It was hunting. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I tapped the record button on my phone just as the SUV stopped in front of my house. For a brief moment, nothing happened. The engine sat idling. I could imagine Karen sitting in the driver's seat, teeth clenched, knuckles white on the steering wheel, deciding whether or not to follow through. Then her confusion turned to rage. She limped toward me, waving one hand like a madwoman. You set me up. That thing is a hazard." I raised an eyebrow and calmly pointed to the curb. "That thing is a standard-size mailbox, Karen. Installed within HOA guidelines. It's on my property, and you just drove onto it. On purpose. I have it all on camera." She froze. I held up my phone and tapped the screen. The footage played back for her, loud and clear, the SUV pulling up, pausing, then lurching forward and crashing onto the lawn. Her mouth hung open. She looked like she wanted to scream, to argue, to twist reality in her favor. But there was nothing she could say. She had caught herself. "You're going to pay for my car, you lunatic. You sabotaged me." Actually, I said, you just committed felony property damage, and I'm pretty sure insurance doesn't cover intentional vandalism caught on camera. That night, I filed a police report. I turned in the footage, documented everything, and made sure she knew she wasn't getting away with it this time. But the real cherry on top, I called an emergency HOA meeting, and I invited everyone. The HOA meeting was packed. We hadn't had that many neighbors show up in months, maybe years. Word had spread fast, especially after photos of Karen's busted SUV started circulating through our neighborhood group chat. I arrived early and set up a laptop with a portable projector. I had a folder titled Mailbox Incident Evidence, with time-stamped video clips, audio, and even drone shots of the mailbox still standing proud, while Karen's SUV lay mangled in front of it like a defeated villain in a cartoon. As Karen walked into the meeting room, silence fell. Every pair of eyes turned toward her. She was wearing a wrist brace and sunglasses indoors, probably to avoid direct eye contact with the people she had been tormenting for years. "Let's begin," I said, tapping the projector remote. Video number 1. The first incident, with Karen's SUV driving past just moments before my mailbox was destroyed. Video number 2. Tire marks, up-close images of the damage, a piece of her headlight found in my yard. Video number 3. The final hit. The big one. Her vehicle swerving, accelerating, and crashing into my mailbox on camera. No one said a word, not even her closest allies on the board. Finally, the HOA president, usually a Karen loyalist, cleared his throat. Karen, do you have any comment on this?" She stood slowly and muttered something about being provoked and misled by mailbox placement. But it was weak. Everyone could see right through it. She had no leg to stand on, metaphorically or legally. I handed the board copies of the police report and a letter from my lawyer. "Unless the board takes disciplinary action," I said, "I'll be pursuing civil damages and pressing charges. I'm happy to take this to court, but I'd prefer to resolve it here." There was a long pause. Then, in an almost poetic moment of justice, the board president said, "Karen, you're hereby removed from the HOA board, effective immediately." Applause broke out. Karen thought she could bully everyone with her HOA power, but in the end she got wrecked by a mailbox and her own arrogance. Sometimes the best revenge is letting your enemy crash into their own consequences. Subscribe me for more stories like these.